Hey guys, so we are going to review for your quiz that we have. So what I want us to do right now is I want us to try to solve this trig equation. And this trig equation here is going to be in, your x values are going to be in between 0 and 2 pi. And so for your quiz, it's going to be the same thing as well. So I need to isolate the sign of x and the 2 and that 1 here. So if I move the 2 over here, I'll add the 2. And then here I'll subtract the so then I'll have a negative 2 sine of x is equal to a 1. Divide both sides by a negative 2. So you'll have a sine of x is going to be equal to a negative 1/2. So where is sine equal to a negative 1/2? On the intervals between 0 and 2 pi. So where is it going to be a negative? So it's going to be negative in the third and the fourth quadrant. So it's going to be what? 7 pi over 6. And then what? An 11 pi over 6. Good. Okay, so I want you to try to solve this one for the same reason here. So think about it, it's in between 0 and 2 pi. So here, this is the half angle, okay? So some angle divided by 2 is going to give me a square root of a 3 over a 2. So I'm gonna do some substitution here, and I'm gonna let u be equal to my x divided by 2. So I wanna find where sine is going to be square root of a 3 over a 2. So where is sine gonna be a square root of a 3 over a 2? And so that's gonna be pi over 3, and that's also gonna be a what, 2 pi over a 3. So those two values there. Okay. But each one of those needs to be set. This needs to be set here to both of the values, the radians. Okay, because what we're doing is we're taking half of some angle. So it has to be this angle, and it has to be this angle, but I need to take half of it before I can do anything. So if I multiply here, I'll just multiply both sides by 2. So for this one, my x will be 2 pi over 3. Here I'm going to multiply by 2, and I'm going to have a 4 pi divided by 3. So these are my two values here. So x will be equal to 2 pi over 3 and a 4 pi over a 3. Okay. All right, I'll try this one for me. Okay, still we're going to go through 0 to 2 pi here of values. So I'm going to treat this, I could treat this the same way. This is a trinomial. Okay, so this is a trinomial. So I've got a cosine squared, I've got a cosine x, and I've got this one here. So I could make this where a cosine of x and cosine of an x like this. So if cosine x times cosine x gives me this cosine squared x, so what multiplies together to give me a 2? A 2 and then a 1, right? So what multiplies together to give me a negative 1? So basically a 1 and a 1. So one of them has to be a negative and one of them has to be a positive. So let me see if I did this one right here. So 2 times cosine is 2 cosine times cosine is a 2 cosine squared. It's a positive 2 cosine x minus a cosine. So when you add those two together, it'll give you a positive, and a negative times a positive gives you a negative. So now we'll set both of these equal to 0. So we'll have 2 cosine x minus a 1 is equal to a 0, and then cosine of x plus a 1 is equal to a 0. So we'll solve for cosine. So we move the 1 over and then divide by 2. And we'll have cosine of x is equal to a negative 1. So where is cosine of an x going to be equal to a 1/2? So that's going to be the x value. So it has to be a positive 1/2. So it's going to be a pi over a 3. And that's also going to be a 5 pi over a 3. And then where is cosine of x going to be equal to a negative 1? That's just going to be at pi. So my answers are going to be pi over 3, pi, and then 5 pi over 3. Good deal? All right, so let's do a harder one. Sorry, my dog's barking. So we got tangent of x, sine squared of x is equal to 3 tangent of x. So I want you to try to solve for this one. Okay? So I need to do some substitution. That's my daughter. Okay. Can you go away, please?
Mommy, I need to tell you something. Daddy's busy. There's enemies. I need your help.
Okay, just a second. Okay, so I can move this 3 tangent of x over to the other side. So I would have tangent of x, sine squared of x, minus a 3 tangent of x. And if I do that, then I can factor my tangent of x out. Sorry, that was my daughter. That's what you get from working at home. So if I can factor this, that's going to be tangent of x factors out, and you'll be left with a sine squared x minus a 3. And then you can set both of those equal to 0. So where is tangent of x going to be equal to 0? And where is sine squared x minus a 3 equal to a 0? So this one's a little bit different because you need to, then we'll have sine squared x is equal to a 3. So where is sine of x equal to a square root of a 3? Well, plus and minus actually. Plus and minus, right? And where is tangent of x equal to 0? So where is tangent of x equal to a 0? So that's going to be at 0 and at pi. And where is sine of x going to be equal to a square root of a 3? Anywhere? I can't think of any place. So we also need to make sure that these work. So always check your solutions. So these do work. So both 0 and pi. Once you plug those back in, those will simplify out to be equal to 0. So you do need to make sure that they do work. Okay? All right, so that's a review for your quiz. So go back and look at any of the solving trig equations videos and just make sure that you understand everything that's going on. If you have any questions, please let me know because I want you to make sure that you are doing good on this. All right, you'll have a good day.